Hey everyone, Nicole Connor here out of the Sierra Mountains, California, and I'm super excited to share my experience as well as my good friend Noelle Upchurch, who's joining me today to talk about the 4 Agreements Journey. And it's a class that we both took with coaches Darrell and Kebie Whitehead. We are so excited about this class, and I'm bringing Noelle on because she has such an incredible kind of a summary of the program, of the agreements, and how they've really impacted her life. So I want you all to hear from her. And without further ado, I'm going to bring her on. Hey, Noelle.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi. So for those people who don't know who you are, can you tell them a little bit about you and where you're from and why you decided to take the 4 Agreements Journey class?
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, I'm Noelle Upchurch, and I'm originally from the state of California. So I grew up most of my life out there, both north and south. And but now I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a wife and a mom. And my passion really is helping families, helping moms, helping single women or single men for that matter, with natural, healthy home solutions. And the way that I was first introduced to the 4 Agreements was in a course that I was in, and it was designated reading. It was required for all of us to read it. And I read it twice, and it really just kind of blew my mind and showed me a whole new perspective on how to look at life and think about things.
For sure. I probably a lot of people who, initially get, because I did, it was like kind of like the Matrix movie, where it was like, you take the red pill or the blue pill, and this is your reality, and this is your reality. Which one do you choose? The truth or not? And really, kind of dove in with this, with the idea that, I was going to learn something, but I don't know how much I'm going to apply. But as I move through this book, and certainly being a part of the group discussion, really gaining more insight from the group, as well as, physically writing in. And I'd listened to the book on Audible a few times. I drive a lot, so, it's my drive time university, right? But to be able to tangibly go through this and then have discussion, like with people like yourself, and you and I took a class together. Can you tell me just a little bit about when you first started reading and diving into this book? What was your initial take on the mitote, so to speak?
Right. Well, yeah, it all made sense to me, but I think the first time I read it, I was coming from the perspective of, that person, kind of how did the outside world affect me? The second time I read it, it was, what's my responsibility towards these agreements, and my life? But it made a lot of sense. And I just think you can unpack a lot of baggage that you've been carrying around by reading this book. And it was so important to me and so impactful that in 2015, I gave it to everyone on my Christmas list.
Wow.
So it's not an expensive book either, by the way.
Right. So obviously it's made a difference in your life. So let's unpack the book a little bit. I love that analogy, and unpacking some of your own junk too, which you just want to keep it in a suitcase and put it in the closet. Look, I'm doing it again. So let's dive in. You have a great way of kind of explaining, the 4 agreements and what they mean to you. So should we start with the first one?
Yes. And as I was saying too, there are actually, there's an introduction and the first chapter. So those give us background on the culture and the tradition that this work was developed in and taken from. And the first chapter really just asks us to forget everything and just asks you to open up your mind. And so there are some terms and phrase that might be different. And I think some people have made stuff right there.
Okay.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. So you were saying, just so the little blips there. So you're saying that some people may just stop right there because they just can't grasp the concepts in the first chapter because it's a little meaty. It's a little hard, if you're not open-minded enough to kind of receive that and just take it for what it is and move forward. Some people just can't wrap their brain around that and keep going forward. But if they do,
this book, I mean, it could be, it's a meal. It's a meal at the French Laundry.
Yeah.
There are many courses.
Yes, there is. What a great thing to say. I love it. So
yeah, some people don't get past the hors d'oeuvres.
That's right, for sure. Several courses. So let's dive into the first agreement, being impeccable with your word.
Yes. Well, the first time that I read the book, where I was coming from and how I interpreted it, what it meant to me, and what I was working on with people was, before we speak, is what we're going to say, is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it true? Because a lot of times it's just the flow of consciousness and we're not really thinking about how those words are painting a picture, how those words are affecting people. You're really painting a picture with our words. And so really the power of our words and what we can create it for good or for bad is really discovered in this book, in this chapter.
Right.
And the second part of, the second kind of way we can look at and think about being impeccable with our word is in terms of our own personal integrity. When we tell somebody that we're going to do something, that we follow through. When we have a value or a moral that we stand for, that we live in that too. Right.
Yeah. And you had talked a little bit previously in our conversations about how part of your personal integrity is not to gossip. And, are those words really, like you said, kind, necessary, or true? And how easy it is to just start talking about a situation that may or may not be true based on our perception. I think that's hugely powerful and certainly speaks to your personal integrity. And it's what makes you, in my opinion, probably one of the most special people that I get to be able to, associate with. So that journey, I'm sure, was not easy, right? Because you have to become more aware of what you're saying. And that gossip about our spouses, talking about a situation at work, right? Could be anything.
Right. Well, first of all, you're one of my favorite people of all time, too. We have a very similar name. We get to trip people up with that when we're together.
A little bit.
Yeah. And, but thank you. That was very sweet. And I'm still not 100%. What it gives you is a greater awareness so that you don't just go down that same easy road.
Right.
But, we just have to think about it, because are we painting a bleak, dark picture of a person for our own gain in the moment, either by having something interesting to say, or we have a motive behind it and we want to make sure that the other person really understands how terrible this guy is,
Been there, done that.
Yeah, that's really not their pure heart and soul as a person. And yes, we have to take people's actions and things into account for kind of our own safety, right? Some of them more serious than others. But at the same time, I had a man that I worked for many years ago, and he would say, loose lips sink ships.
Right.
And back then I was like, oh, sure they do.
But we've seen it, right? We've seen it happen, just in our own experience in the last year and a half, how powerful people's words are and how quickly they can destroy or their attempt
Or
to
build up.
yeah.
Or build up people. How
And
much have we been able to build up in our community
right.
with words?
Yes. And of course,
It's wonderful.
I'm a words of affirmation love language person. So to be able to use my words for that creative energy and building people with those words, a lot to me. It's been fun, wrestling with each of these agreements that we've made over time. So let's go ahead and move on to the second agreement. Don't take anything personally.
So the concept of this one, when I first heard it, was really tough and really almost offended me. I didn't understand what the person was saying at all. But she said, what people say or think about you is really none of your business. That was, I'd never heard of something like that before. So, of course it's my business. I'm going to go
right?
crappy right in there, right? So it's just, I said before, and, it's just very freeing once we realize that whatever is going on over there with somebody just really doesn't have much to do with us. It's their perspective, their experience, their current mood. And yes, our words and our actions affect people, and there's in turn us.
Right.
But if we stay in our own lane,
What I loved about what you just said for, someone else's opinion is not our business, but it says here in the book, even the opinions you have about yourself are not necessarily true.
Absolutely.
And is what blindsided me with, I was so focused out here about what people thought of me or what was going on out there. It's easier to focus on that. But the self-talk that I had about myself, for whatever reasons, because I was domesticated to think of a certain thing, or, I was raised to think a certain way, or my experiences dictated how I thought about these things. Really, even that required dissection, to really pull that out of the suitcase, if you will, unpack that and say, oh, what damage and what falsehoods and what lies are that I've been saying about myself that are literally true. But I've been painting that picture, and it was so believable that I had to really make some changes in that area. She says, or he says here, you don't need to take whatever you hear in your own mind personally. The mind has the ability to talk to itself, but it also has the ability to hear information that is available from other realms. And when you're talking about how powerful our words are, they're equally powerful for ourselves. I mean, that's some big meaty stuff there. Like you said, this is like a whole entree all by itself, right? Decadent.
Yeah.
Decadent.
Yes. Yes. And I love that, and I'm glad you brought that up. And if we can just, whatever analogy, whatever we like to use, but just imagine ourselves, walking around with this big backpack full of rocks and these agreements that we've made about ourselves, about the world, about our relationships, about who we are. We can unpack all of those stones and leave them behind and create something new, authentically.
Yes. Isn't that cool? Like, we get to just have a reboot entirely, and how that's going to affect positively everyone around us because we are doing that.
Yes. And God gives us that chance.
Right.
Every day.
So cool. All right, let's move on to the third agreement, not making assumptions.
Yes. So I also had a friend that she used to say, making assumptions makes an ass out of you and me. Just remember that. I'll never forget that. But that's kind of simple, right? But just the idea of not having all the information, and now we've developed and produced an entire Oscar-winning, major motion picture film starring Ryan Gosling and, Emma Stone as myself. And we ruined the whole thing before we even got to it. So, we can ask some clarifying questions. We can also just, again, not have a judgment about it.
Mm-hmm. And for me, this was the going through the class the first time, and I will be taking it again because diving into this and unpacking some more stuff for myself as well. For me, for the first time going through this class, this not making assumptions was probably the most self-sabotaging thing I've done in my life. And that is relationships in particular. And what I mean by that is, I would run this story, this motion picture in my head because I wasn't brave enough or didn't have the courage enough to ask clarifying questions of the people that I was not afraid of, but afraid of what the answer might be, is to ask those, what did you mean when you said that? Because it seemed mean-spirited, or it seems by your behavior that you don't care for me for whatever reason. And because I would not ask those questions, I would run down this little rabbit trail of catastrophizing my life as it related to that person, right? And it goes with my marriage, it goes with my relationship with my kids, and just literally, and I can give you some very painful examples, which I won't do here, but for that reason, because I would just make these assumptions, my relationships have been damaged over time. So to really muster up the courage to understand that I made those assumptions, and because I did, my life became full of drama, this huge Oscar-winning drama, and to really wrap that up and start asking questions again, and then knowing what the facts are gives me an opportunity to then make a decision and ask for what I want, and then be able to do the same thing. And then you can make a decision. Is the relationship with this person good or bad? Decide to keep it or not. Decide to repair it or not, and move on and recreate that whole scenario. And for me, it's like I said, that was a hard one for me, and it is now something that I can see tangible results in my relationships since taking this class and being more aware of when I do that, what the reasons are behind that. So this one was a little rough for me, but good.
It is rough. It's a rough one. Yeah, this one's so essential, and just even this one sentence kind of sums it up. We make an assumption, we misunderstand, we take it personally, and we end up creating a whole big drama for nothing.
Mm-hmm. For nothing.
Yeah. And just something really simple, like imagine not receiving a wedding invitation and thinking that you've been not included, and then come to find out the printer didn't mail them out yet because he was having a problem with the typeset. You know what I'm saying? Right. So now, instead of asking the person and just being okay with what the answer is, for whatever reason, we didn't invite you because you make a mess, or we didn't invite you because we can't afford it, whatever. Yeah. Whatever, there's other ways to celebrate people. So just better to ask than to assume, and then have bad feelings, conversations in our head. Right. But we have to also know that the person that we're asking clarifying questions to is a person of integrity, right?
Right. And this is where I think that literally ties into the last one, is that the fourth agreement, always doing your best. And, I learned to just appreciate that in any given moment without making any assumptions, my agreement with myself is that person's doing the best they can this day. Me or them an opportunity or a reason to treat me or others poorly or act in a way that's not appropriate, like an employee or something like that. But to give someone the benefit of the doubt that they are doing their best. Now I have to put this back on myself, am I doing my best? And you did such a great job of clarifying what this meant to you before. So I'm going to let you take it on that one.
Oh, thank you. And we have so much information coming at us, from so many directions throughout the day. And we have a lot of responsibilities that are real, and responsibilities for things we want to accomplish, goals that we've made, things that just simply have to be done. I mean, really, in our day and age, it is a lot. I don't know. I guess we're all acknowledging that at this point. It's much more, much more. So there will be days that are doing our best, are better than others. It depends on how we feel physically. It depends on if there really is a tough situation going on that's just weighing you down a little bit more, because we are, even with these agreements, we are still living this human experience and we have emotions.
Right.
So there's a balance in all of this. But at the end of the day, can we really say we did our best and be okay with that?
Yeah.
And then sleep peacefully to give ourselves the rest we need so that the next day we can, have the opportunity to do our best again. And I only say that from being a person who did ruminate throughout the night. I solved all the world's problems between 2 and 4 a.m. I wasn't getting great sleep. That's for sure. So then I had no energy the next day to do the things that I needed to do. I'd already done them in my mind.
Right. You're running circles in your mind.
Oh, yeah. I'd run marathons through deserts.
Yeah. Well, I like that this chapter gives you, permission to not be the same every day. And that based on, the circumstances that happen, and as long as we're really working on those other agreements to be impeccable with our word, using our words wisely, whether they're kind, necessary, or true, that we are really doing our level best every day not to take something personally and not make assumptions, and get to that place where we're just going to do our best with the level of energy you have that day, and be okay, like you said, with it just not being the same level every day. To me, that is a huge freeing moment that, you know what, I did the best I could today. And I could laundry list a bunch of things and why it wasn't the best day ever, but to give myself permission to just rest in knowing that I truly, in that circumstance, did the best I could, and I'll try again tomorrow to do better.
Yeah, and I think too, one thing that they bring up in the book is about the judge. Who is the judge that's judging us? Who is the voice? And then we'd have to take into account that some things will take us off track during our day, but those can be good things too. This can be looked at positively as well. We didn't get the spreadsheet done, but we spent some extra time with our loved one,
right?
Those kinds of things. So again, who's the judge here? We have employers sometimes to answer to. There are responsibilities. But I think one reason why you were just saying, we're different every day. I mean, we as human beings are not robots. That's a good thing. Well, as we go on in the years, we're going to have a lot more experience with machines in that way. Personal throughout the day. And so again, there's just this beauty in all the faults of being human.
Yes, exactly. And the end of the book talks about breaking those old agreements, right, and really diving into that. And what I love about Coach Kebie and Coach Darrell is they really pull that out. There's some great discussion. What I love about the group is that you're going to hear some of this from other folks, and it may or may not resonate with you, but some of it might be aha, I do that too. Oh yeah, I had that experience. I get that. And then to be able to hear that group really ruminate on these topics, and then to be able to get to a place at the end where you're really identifying what those old agreements were and what you're going to do step by step to recognize it, change it, and move on. If you could sum up the last piece of that, where the heaven on earth and creating a new dream, for me, that looks like, really living my life and not holding back joy and not holding back the love that I can give to others through my coaching program, through my relationships at work with my employees, with you and, you know, others that I have an opportunity to have an impact on, and not be afraid of what that looks like. You know, to live a life truly with a mental and emotional freedom is a big kind of aha and gift that this, I think, is giving me. So how would you sum up the last piece of the book and class?
Well, really one word is kind of peace. And that, you know, that can be really simplistic, right? But there's just a lot more peace in, again, being free from these old agreements, establishing new agreements that we can live within. We're adults. We really can live this way.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes, 20 rungs off the ladder that we feel like we have to climb up and down all day long by applying these agreements. And so, just to bring up to the course and the importance of diving into this book more deeply with some experienced coaches, and a group of people is night and day to reading it on your own. So, after this now, I won't be able to do that this afternoon, but I really just want to sit down and read it.
Mm-hmm.
And, we can do that. We're always going to come at it from a different place. But, Darrell Price, he just has such a great grasp of these agreements.
Right.
And again, we're getting asked deeper questions. Instead of just reading it, instead of just hearing it on Audible and, oh, kind of, yeah, I can see that. And wow, that was crazy. And, this is really now the action, the change, because otherwise we can put it down and walk away and go back to our old agreements pretty easily.
Right.
So
accountability in the group.
There's an accountability, but there is also just a lot of camaraderie. It's something to really look forward to, the relationships that you make with people in that class. Mm-hmm. We've taken a lot of courses with Coach Kebie, and now I've done this book twice with Darrell, but they're really skilled at what they do in training and in coaching. So you're taking it. The course material is being delivered by people who really know how to lead a group through this.
Right. And they've done it.
Right.
And they're transparent about their own journey through this as well, which is what makes them so much more relatable. Because anyone can get up in front of a room or in front of a group and tell you stuff. But really being genuine and vulnerable and transparent is what I appreciate about both of them very much.
And fun. They're both fun.
Yes, they are.
It's not like this deep, heavy. It's actually energizing.
It really is. All right. Well, I am so grateful for your time today, Noelle. Thanks so much for being on here with me today. We're going to go ahead and share this out with the world and hopefully get some more interested people in this book, and certainly Coach Kebie and Darrell's class. So thanks so much for your time, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Bye. Thanks, Nicole.